What I'm about to present is about how do you create an effective presentation. And one of the things that I think is an essential piece of an effective presentation is having some interpersonal human contact.
Yes.
Okay? And that means that if you're with an audience who don't know one another, to at least get them to know a few people at their table. Maybe in this, we're going to be together all week. I figure I'm going to make you go outside of your table and learn some names. But I also have to be doing some things while I'm doing that. I'm paying attention to how you're interacting with one another, how you're interacting with me. Are people spacing out? Are you discussing? Are you looking at your watch? There's all kinds of things I'm trying to pick up on right now, because an effective presentation isn't just about me doing something, but it's about us doing something together.
Oh.
Okay? Now, all right. So let's jump into it. Let's do something together. First of all, some of you will have seen what I'm about to show, and so you'll let other people experience it, and you won't give it away. But what I want to do is I want to suggest this. We live in a world filled with huge amounts of information. Okay, lots and lots and lots of stuff is coming in all the time. Right now. What's one thing that's coming into you right now?
No, listen, you see that, I'm hearing those books clicked in.
Ah, excellent. So, listen, hearing, you're looking up there. There's a lot of stuff. You're also getting sensory information about the temperature of the room. I mean, there is so much stuff going into your brain right now. The question is, what do you pay attention to of all that stuff? And I want to give you a little attention task. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a video, and I want you to just watch this video, and it'll tell you what to do, okay? And if you've seen it, like I said, if you've seen it, we will let you keep quiet, okay? What you have to do here is count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball to one another. Just count. So what I mean here is you got some white, you got some black, so there's one. Okay, now. Okay, 16 passes, how'd you do? Okay, great. Now, be honest now. If you haven't seen this before, or something like it, how many of you saw the gorilla? Okay, if you had, what gorilla? So some people are saying what gorilla, some people are saying, so here's what I want you to do is, did you spot the gorilla? They're going to show it again. Okay, so let's look. Okay, about half of the people, and that would probably be true of this room, about half missed the gorilla, and we'll see it. Okay, so the other part is that the curtain changed color. How many people saw that? Okay, let's look. Let's watch it again. Okay, so here we go. And did you notice the player on the black team leaving the game?
But I thought that was
okay, so let's watch it. So there are three things to see. Gorilla. There's the gorilla. Okay, and let's watch. Here we go. There's the gorilla coming in. Curtain is changing colors. Person on the black team left. Okay, now, what does this have to do with attention and with teaching? I want you to stop for a second before you answer. I want you to jot down what you think, just for yourself, this isn't to hand in or anything, what you think that might illustrate about teaching. How does this relate to you personally? Who's got an idea? Obviously, it's a big group. I won't be able to take every comment that people have, but I'll try to get around to people over the course of the next hour or so. Yes?
It's kind of like my mom. When I'm talking to her and she has, if you say a word that she likes, she doesn't hear anything else you're saying because she's focused on that one particular aspect.
Why do you think she focuses on that one aspect?
It's important to her.
Maybe it's important to her. Now, we're going to talk about this throughout the morning. Why do we pay attention to what we pay attention to? Yes?
That when I'm focused on one thing, like you gave a directive, that's all I was interested in. And I didn't pay attention to anything else. I totally missed everything else.
Yes,
I'm just going to give that a title. Selective listening and hearing.
Ah. Selective. Now, the question, and this is basically the theme of this morning for me. How do we select? And then how, as teachers, once we know how we select, do we then design things so that people are selecting what we want them to select? Because that's what teaching's all about, is getting people to come to the material motivated to learn it. Okay, and not go somewhere else. So how is it that we choose what to select? Well, let me suggest this. Somebody, was it, I'm sorry, Samantha, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think you were the one saying that it was important to her. And then you said, I told you to look for that. Okay, I want to show you how this works. What I tell you to look for, you all want to please the teacher. Right. So I'm going to tell you to look. I want you to all just pay attention to yourselves right now, just your experience right here. Listen to all your senses. Now, I want you to pay attention to the feeling. Okay? I want you to pay attention to something different than all your senses. I want you to pay attention to the feeling on the back of your legs.
Yeah.
Now, how many people were paying attention to the feeling on the back of their legs before I said it?
No.
Ah, Lord, that's interesting. One person out of this entire room was paying attention to the feeling on the back of their legs, because that was not important to you when I said, you know, pay attention to them. What were you paying attention to? I said, when I pay attention to your senses.
The chip I was eating.
The chip you were eating. Ooh, that could kill you, right? Something that you're eating. It's very important. You're taking something from the world and putting it inside your mouth and swallowing it down into your body. That's really important. So you're going to pay attention to that.
You know it.
Okay? What else were people paying attention to? Creaking sound. You were paying attention to things that were different, out of the ordinary. Are they dangerous? Basically, we're wired up to be paying attention to things that might hurt us, that might give us sustenance, and also to the people around us who might give us protection and community. We are wired up to pay attention to certain things. You don't pay attention to the back of your legs, usually, unless somebody tells you to, and then it drifts off pretty. How many have been paying attention to the back of their legs just now? See, I started talking and you lost attention to the back of your legs. The back of your legs is like the timetables, right? Because it doesn't matter to you unless I tell you, pay attention to the back of your leg. Now, back of leg, back of leg, back of leg. Okay, so we have to figure out what do people pay attention to naturally, and then ally it with the things we want them to pay attention to. So let me give you an example. This actually happened to me. This is real. And I'm going to need, let's see, Ashley, will you come up and help me? Yes. You'll be able to do this. I'm the only one that's going to potentially have a disastrous thing here. Okay. I was teaching high school, and I did this. I walked in one day. I was teaching high school biology, and there's a glass of water right there. You're going to need to come around on this side. Okay? And I got up, and I did a handstand. Okay? And then, Ashley, what I want you to do is pour some water in my mouth.
That's going to leave a mark.
Okay, a little more.
I'm going to do that at school.
Okay, and I swallowed that, right?
Yeah.
Little came out. Okay, now, I'm going to come back down. Okay, now, I want you to make a guess. Thank you. A little came out and a little went on my face. I did, in fact, swallow that. Okay, now I want you to attend to this novelty. Now, I had everybody's attention just now, right? Anybody not attending? Okay, first of all, let me ask you why you were attending.
You were standing on your head.
Very different. I was standing on my head. It was a little bit, you weren't sure what was going to happen. Was I going to fall? I usually don't do it on a wiggly table like that, so it was a little scary for me too. Okay? Now, you were attending to it because it was different. That's one of the most important things that we have in our arsenal. People attend to novelty. Why would we attend to novelty? Why would we be wired up to attend to novelty? What do you think?
It's out of the norm.
But why would we care that, of all the things, there are millions of bits of information, and you're paying attention to the little creek up here?
Because we're trying to understand it.
Why are we trying to understand?
Because it might require an action.
It might affect us. Things that are different are the things that potentially could affect us. Could hurt us. Could be a source of food, like the red berry is different than the green bush. We are wired up to attend to novelty and to try to solve mysteries. We want to understand how the world is working so that we can use that information. So,
Protect yourself. You don't know what's out there.
exactly. And once we hear a novelty, we hear something going, and the whole ceiling's going, we're wondering, okay, what's causing that? Is there a pipe about to burst? Is the ceiling going to fall? Or is this just normal for the building? You're trying to solve the mystery. What is it? So now my question is, and the mystery I want you to solve, is what was I trying to teach that day? Okay? So what was I trying to teach that day? Okay, well, that I could swallow upside down,
You can control your muscles.
that I could control my muscles.
That gravity has nothing.
Peristalsis. I was trying to teach the concept of peristalsis. Not just that I could swallow upside down, but specifically what was going on. This is a picture of peristalsis. That your esophagus can actually squeeze things against gravity. Okay, that's why I can drink upside down. Okay, now, what would be the traditional way of teaching peristalsis? It's in the biology curriculum. What would be the traditional way of teaching? Maybe having this, there's a maybe reading of the definition of it, maybe writing the definition of it. The reason why I'm sharing this with you right now is because last year I went to a party at a friend's house, and there were people there I didn't know. And somebody came up to me and said, when you were teaching high school, now this is not a person I knew, when you were teaching high school, did you drink water upside down? And I said, yeah, I think so. It sounds like the kind of thing I would have done. I mean, I've done it before. I can't remember what I did. So, I mean, it really wasn't something that had stood out in my mind because I'd done a lot of different things like that. But I had done it before in my life. I think I did that when I was teaching high school. How do you know?
Because he was your student.
He was not my student. He was a guy who worked on a construction crew with one of my former students. Who said, I had this guy, Mr. Goodman, who taught biology, and he drank water upside down to show us how the esophagus worked.
So it made that big of an impression.
Now, think about that. Now, I said, I'm not totally sure, but it sounds like I did do this. And while I was saying that, another person at the party who I did know came up. He was somebody whose daughter had been in my class. And he said, you definitely did that because she wrote about it on her college essay. Now think about that. It was just one thing I was thinking, okay, I got to teach peristalsis. Kids are always bored by words like peristalsis. What am I going to do? Okay, this is a good way to teach it. Now think about what that means for us. There are ways in if we can figure out how to do it. That was a way of doing this sort of extreme novelty thing. Strangeness works in our favor.
We are
Okay.
so lucky.
Now, okay, yes.
Currently, my kids are taking the EOGs. They're in elementary school, and the teachers have made deals with them. If they scored this high, one's going to, dye her hair platinum blonde. One's going to dance with another teacher in the lunchroom. Those odd things, and the kids are so excited because they want to see these things happen.
Well, and that will come into community. We're going to talk about community. That also has novelty in it. That also has something about the future, and they're wanting to see how it's going to come out. Predictions always drive people. Now, I want to pause for a moment and have you talk at your table. And here's what I want you to figure out. What's one way, either that you have used novelty, or that you could use novelty to teach something you have to teach. Okay, novelty meaning something that's out of the ordinary, that presents a mystery. I'll give you one other example. Okay, I'm teaching a math class, and the day I'm teaching the math class, this is what I do. I come into the class is seated, and I come in and I do this. And everybody says, Mr. Goodman, why are you walking backwards? I don't know. Maybe you'll be able to figure it out. I don't know, we'll go through the class today. Maybe you'll be able to figure it out. Now, that happens to be the day I'm teaching negative numbers. Okay? Now, you know what negative numbers are, but then I go on and teach my class, and then I say, so tell me about, I walked in backwards, what was that all about? Now, it's there in their minds as a mystery to be solved. And that clues them in to pay attention. That's how the brain works. There's a mystery, try to solve it. I drank water upside down. I didn't tell them why. As we learned about peristalsis, they then understood what I was doing and how it related. So now, take a moment, talk to the people at your table, come up with one way, each person, one way that you either have or could use something out of the ordinary to present a mystery that would get people wanting to learn something. Yes?
Working with kindergartners and being a media coordinator, I don't have any help with me. They come drop them off. There's a transition period. Attention is a big deal, getting it and keeping it anyway. So I always kept a piece of paper and a pair of little scissors in my pocket. If it got really bad, I'd just stop and bring it out and start folding. And then I would all of a sudden start clipping and pull out the little boy or girl, pull out. Then I can start teaching. And I'm usually related.
I want you to notice that both of these things are visuals. Now, we're going to talk about visuals in a moment, about how important visuals are to our brains. Visuals are really good attention getters. Okay? Let's try one other. And I will call on people. I'm going to keep moving around to people I haven't heard from yet, and I'll come back to you. That's okay. I love it. Yes?
I was working on body parts in my ESL class, and it's very difficult to stay on top of those kinds of things when you're working with ESL students. So I had my students come in, and I had a bunch of Post-it notes sitting at their tables, and I proceeded to hop up on the table, and they had to label me, and they never forgot anything ever.
They had to label you. See, there's a social component to that. These things all overlap, so we're going to talk about social components. You can walk in, drama is so important. My whole thing with betting up on the table is all about drama, right? Where you walk in, you're teaching Spanish to English speakers, to Anglos, you go, oh, it's such a dolor de cabeza, oh, dolor de cabeza. And then, what might it be? You know? What might it be? What clues do you have? So you're teaching people how to take apart clues. Things little mysteries that are going to take place later, like you have, say, a bunch of radishes on your tabletop. And why are they there? You say, I don't know. Why do you think they're there?
It's a snack.
You don't, well, it could be a snack, and actually this idea came from I have an article for you from a neurobiologist who became she was a doctor, a neurologist actually, who became a middle school teacher and has written about the neurobiology of learning and has given me a lot of good ideas. I met her last year, and the radish idea was hers because it didn't have any particular relationship. Like, you're teaching a health class, and one kid says, it's kind of like a reverse bloodstream. There's red on the outside and white on the inside, And then somebody else says, oh, it's about healthy eating. And then somebody else says, oh, it's about how you have to have spice in your life or you'll get depressed. Right? So each person writes something different. There is no one answer. Those are some good kinds of things, but there's not one answer. Yes?
You said you met a neurobiologist that became a middle school teacher?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, her name is Judy Willis, and I've got an article by her. She became a middle school teacher and then a fifth grade teacher for 12, 15 years, and now she goes around the country and she talks about the neurobiology of learning. She got so interested in learning from having been an MD and studying the brain that she wanted to try to apply her ideas in the classroom. She's a wonderful person. She has a website that's also located on this handout. I'm not handing it out now because you'll start reading it. And I just know I've done this too long. Now, everybody should have gotten this by now, which says the title of this presentation and 10 ideas. The reason I'm giving this to you now is that I want you to not worry that the things you're seeing are not available to you. They're all available from the website that's on this page. I'm sure we'll link to it from the ABS website also. The other thing is that it's a good place if you have ideas or things you want to jot down. I'm going to go through these in order, but there's a lot of overlap. So now you have something to hang on to. I'm not big for handing out the carcasses of trees to people, so I'm not going to print out every last thing I say, because this is all available to you, and in the notes section there are more notes for it. Okay. Let's keep moving. I want to actually go to a different sense. Although we've been talking about visuals, I want to go to the sense of touch. Okay? Now I have something specific to teach you. And while this is being handed out, okay, so if I can get some folks to help me hand this out. And the side you're going to be looking at is the side that has the 2 blocks of type. It says limbic system at the top. Okay. While this is being handed out, I just want to tell you something about what I'm going to teach you. This is some detailed information about 2 different parts of the brain. Okay? And I agree, it's just a list of information. It's boring. But we're going to try to figure out some ways to make it mean something to you. The first is to create a physical activity that goes with this information. Sense of touch. Okay. Each person is going to need a partner for this. Okay. And if there are 5 at your table, turn around to the table behind you and see if there's a person you can get matched up with. Okay. And here's how it's going to work. I'm going to demonstrate this. Can I demonstrate this with you? Okay. So I have my, you'll grab your sheet right there. Okay. I have my 2 blocks of type. Right now we're working with rocks and the limbic system. Okay. So we're only dealing with the top block of type. Okay. I'm going to read one of these things, and as I say it, I'm going to hand you a rock. Okay. So I'm going to say, so I'm going to put it in my own words. So the limbic system lies deep inside the brain. Yep.
Is your emotional core sometimes called your emotional brain?
So you can say the limbic system is, I left off the limbic system in front of it. Okay, is your emotional core. Okay, so, and I think about that. I'm going to hold the rock and think about that. Emotional brain, rock. I'm going to take a moment to think, and then I'm going to hand the rock back to her. Okay? Then, once we've gone through it a couple times, we're going to start handing the rock and not looking at the paper. When you get the rock, you're going to have to say something from the list. Okay, so first we're going to go through and just read it through, handing this back and forth, thinking. And then we're going to start handing it back and forth and not looking at the list. We're only doing the limbic system right now. Everybody follow me? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these rocks passed out to the pairs, and I'll put a few on each table here. Aileen and others, I'll put a few, and you can pass them around and make sure every pair has a rock. There's a reason these are rocks and not something you already have. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay.
Just one for every 2 people.
One for every 2 people. So one for every 2 people. And there's some rocks here if people need them. What pairs need them? Okay. Here's the pairs that need them. One for every 2 people. What pairs still need them? There's one. Who's got an extra one? We have an extra one right here. Yeah. Who else needs one? Another pair needs one.
You didn't hear that.
No. Okay, before we start. Okay, great. Now, if you have... Do we have an odd number of people? Is anybody left out? Before we start, Vivian, will you tell us, what are we going to do? Where's Vivian? Tell us what we're going to do.
We're going to hand a rock and think about something, hand a rock, hand it to them. They take it. I guess they think about it.
They're going to say it as they hand it, and then you're going to both think about it for a moment. Think about what it means. Hand it back and forth.
And eventually we have to have a next one.
Exactly. Try to get through it. Okay? Just for the limbic system.
Okay. So the limbic system shut information off to reactive systems in the brain or to the higher systems depending on the stimulus.
The limbic system is connected to memory, especially emotional. The limbic system,
sometimes called your emotional brain.
Once you stop reading the paper, it's hard to remember what was on the paper because the activity is totally disconnected from what's on the paper.
Ah, very good, very good. So now, excellent. This is a good idea. See, I've got a good idea for something to do in my presentation, but it's not there yet. So now we're going to build on this. So what I want you to watch what I'm doing as a presenter. I didn't present this fully formed. Okay? I wanted you to see what, did everybody have a little bit of trouble kind of thinking about what this means? It's just sort of like words. I just threw out a bunch of words. I connected it to this rock, but what does it mean? It's totally disconnected. Now, I'm going to teach you something first. Okay? I want you to pay attention. Okay? This is now going to add novelty here. So, this place smells like my, a warm, flooding feeling, a good feeling. Now, why was I feeling so scared when I thought, oh, my mother used to wear red when she was angry. That's why Elizabeth's making me angry. Okay. Now, now some people are laughing. I'm wondering if they're laughing at me or with me. Likely that they're probably laughing at me. Okay, now let's see. They're laughing at me. They're laughing at me. You know what? You're giving a presentation now, and even if they're laughing at you, it's okay. You've done this before. Now I can pay attention. Quiet my heart. And my heart's just going because of my old limbic system. But now I'm gonna use this other part of my brain, the prefrontal cortex. I can feel it working right here. The thoughtful, comparing, analyzing, wondering part. And somebody seeming bored. I'm getting scared. Maybe people are really secretly. This isn't going over well. I should never have done the thing with the rocks and the balls. Doesn't matter. If you keep going with this, now you'll be all right. Now, this may or may not be a good lesson, but in the long term, everybody's going to learn something. Okay. Now, what is it that they're learning? I wonder. Okay, how could I go about reinforcing what I'm teaching? Okay. Now you're noticing that I'm using the two things in two very different ways to represent two different very. So in general, there are two blocks of text on your paper, okay? Which one, what did the rock symbolize? Just in a general sense, yes?
The evolutionary part, the limbic.
The old evolution, fight or flight, that sort of the hit. Are people making fun of me? Are they going to like me? Am I going to have a place to stay? Are they going to eat me? Okay? So what was this other, the ball now? Okay. Now I'm going to now each pair should have a ball and a rock. Okay. Now we're going to change how you do this game just a little bit. Okay. One person should hold both of them. Everybody got one person holds both. We're just going to try this together. Okay. Now you are going to choose which one to hand to the person. Now, what did this one represent again? Prefrontal. The thoughtful, it's called the prefrontal cortex. It's in the front of the brain. Okay, this one represented that. You're going to either hand the person a rock, or you're going to hand the person a ball. Okay? And the person is going to have to tell you one thing about that part of the brain. So they're going to have to make a decision. Which one got handed to me? And tell me one thing about it. Okay? So, for instance, let me give you an example. I'm going to hand you, you can look at your paper if you want.
Sorry, I say something.
Yeah, you could, or you just.
The prefrontal cortex predicts future events.
Okay. Now, I'm going to give them both to you, and you're going to hand one of them to me. It doesn't matter which one. The limbic system is involved in memory and emotional memory. Like when I was burned as a young kid by going up against the stove, that would be stored, as the limbic memory. Okay? So what I want you to do is try trading things back and forth, and you decide which thing you want to say. You can look at your paper. This is just the beginning of this, okay? You hand the person one or the other, and you tell them something about that thing. She tells me something about this.
I gotta give you one statement to involve. I give you one statement to involve, and then I give both to you. And you decide what you're going to give me. I got you. Okay. The limbic system lies deeply in the brain.
Let's be patient with ourselves and with our students. Don't think because you covered it, anybody learned anything. Okay. So, and I'm playing this. I'm playing this as a presenter. I have to be reading how it's going over, and I'm making some decisions. Now, I'm showing you how I'm making the decision. I want to reinforce what we just talked about with some group stuff. So I want to look at the visuals I've used. So let's think about, why might I have used the rock to represent the limbic system, which, by the way, is in the inside of your brain. It's deeper in the brain. It's evolutionarily older. Why would I? Yeah, kind of wanted to connote caveman. Now, why would the oldest part of our brain be the emotional part? Yeah, fight or flight. That is what allowed primitive creatures to survive. Right? This is not higher culture at this point. We're talking about the limbic system is very clearly in reptiles and all the way through. It's a deep, old part of the brain. Okay? Now, just look at where it is. It's the part that's circled in there. It's actually just that purple and the blue, something called the amygdala, the hippocampus. And these are the old parts. Now, tell me something about this old part. What else? Anything about that list there that surprises you about the limbic system? Yeah, why would it be connected to the olfactory lobes? These are the bulbs, these olfactory bulbs right there. Why would it be connected to smell so strongly?
Because of basics.
Say again?
Things that you have come accustomed to.
Ah, right, you can smell. In fact, we probably are reacting to smell a whole lot more than we know. And in modern society, we think we can cover it up by washing it away and so on. But actually, our bodies are very tuned into pheromones, just like the rest of the animal kingdom. This is kind of I will tell you this, but it's a very interesting study. They took men's sweat and they distilled it so it wasn't noticeable, and they put it underneath on a little pad underneath women's noses. And they were part of an experiment, right? They knew they were part of an experiment. Some people had something, they couldn't tell the difference. This wasn't just a little bit of sweat versus a little bit of water, but they could not. They say, I don't know which I have. Totally blind. And it was very interesting because it actually affected women's cycles. They were more likely to ovulate in that period of time when they had the sweat. Now, that's a pretty wild study. Now, but why would that be? Fertility, yeah, fertility. So I'm only suggesting, I'm just only throwing this out, is that we have some old biology built into us, and we are reacting to old biology all the time. If I remind you of somebody who scared you as a little kid, I am not going to be able to teach you very well until I figure that out. Yes?
I had a friend whose husband had to take testosterone cream.
Right.
And she kept smelling this musk, not must.
Right,
but
musk, right?
And she accused him. She was like, "Who are you seeing this? Are you seeing some woman?" Or she was really getting upset. And then one day they were out and they had worked in the yard, and of course they were both dirty and sweaty and
Right.
had been cleaning. And she was downwind and caught that smell again. And what was happening was it was the testosterone that was creating this, but no other women could smell it but her.
Right, her body hadn't been attuned to it. Now, I'm not wanting to go into the biology of smell here. We can talk about that over a meal or something. But what I want to do is well, here you all are laughing because we assume that smell is bad. In fact, it's a deep part of who we are. We like, as a society, we like to get rid of all this stuff, but in fact, it is a deep part of who we are. But we pretend like we don't have emotions. We pretend like our students don't have emotions. We pretend like teaching is a cognitive act. Learning is a cognitive act, and it's not. It's a cognitive and social and emotional act, teaching and learning. So I decided to choose the rock to represent this old version of life. And the prefrontal cortex, which is really what makes us human, essentially. It's the part that allows us to make moral judgments, what's right or wrong. Okay? If you lose your prefrontal cortex, you can still function. There was a guy, Phineas Gage, who had you probably remember learning about this, the iron rod he was tamper at for railroads, and they were tamping a hole that had dynamite in it, and it blew the rod he was tamping with, and he struck his arm through his eye out, and it basically obliterated part of his prefrontal lobe. And he went from being this sweet guy to being this guy who functioned intellectually fine, but morally he lost all his. He couldn't make any plans. He got divorced, and his whole personality changed. But he could still add and subtract and drive a car and do all those things. He was pre-car, but do all the things with that he was able to do.
Is that where the lobotomies that they used
Right.
to come from?
Right, and when they do a lobotomy, they're actually wiping out that part of the brain, although they do it in such a way as supposedly to make people more.
They don't start with sweet people. They start with
Okay, so why do you think I chose a tennis ball? Yeah, it's more perfect in the sense of it's sort of more creative, modern looking. I don't know. It has some text on it. I kind of think of it like, oh, you read it. Tennis player, there's snooty tennis player. I don't know, but I thought it was, compared to the rock, it seemed more modern. So I made a choice there about the physicality of the two things, and we're going to keep using these, so it's important. So visually now we've got a visual of the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. Right? So you got that visual in your head. Okay. So you got a tactile and a visual. Now, I want to use music because I know that music is another ancient part of our ability to hear tones in voice. Watch this. I'm going to walk in. You tell me what emotion I have. I won't even use words.
Your play.
Right, whereas, right? So I can use no words, and you know just from the sound of my voice. You can tell things about language just from sound. Like you all know the story of Little Rat Rotten Hut? Once upon term there worsted little gull who left with her murderer on her itch off her large dark florist. This little gull orphan worried honey little rat caught with her little rat hut, and for disgrace and pimple called her Little Rat Rotten Hut. Little Rat Rotten Hut's murderer called her and said, Little Rat Rotten Hut, take this little basking to her cordage off her groin murder, done stop her laundry route, done stop her pet floors, and yonder nor sorghum stenches, done stop her torque wet strainers. What story am I doing? Little Red Riding Hood. You know it just from the cadence of it, not the words. Those are all different words, right? Pimple called her, people called her, Little Red Riding Hood, Little Red Riding Hood. Right? And so my favorite part of that story is where she says to the wolf, she says, oh, grammar, water bag, icer gut, a nervous sausage bag ice. A nervous sausage bag ice. But you know what it is? Just from the sound of it, I never saw such big ice. So, our brains are tuned into music. Just the music of speech, probably ancient from bird song, and just like, oh. Right? We don't need words always. So remember limbic system versus prefrontal cortex. Here's how we're going to do it. Right down here is going to be our dividing line. You all are going to be limbic system. We need a good sort of limbic system, limbic system, limbic system, limbic system. Okay? I'll get you all going with that in a minute. You all are going to be prefrontal cortex. Try it. Prefrontal cortex. Hold the pinky out maybe while you do it. So it's sort of like prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex. Limbic system, 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 limbic system. Okay. Now. You all understand that in giving a presentation about some abstract concepts, just having you learn the words is not what I'm after. I'm after you learning the big idea. The words support it. You can always go back and look at this thing. You need the big idea, and more than that, you need to care about the big idea. Now, I think we're enjoying this. It feels fun. What makes you care about what we're doing?
We're part of it.
Okay, you're part of it. What makes it interesting? Okay, what makes it exciting? That's great. I love it. What? Interactive. Okay, but what am I doing that makes it fun?
In a way, it's like we're learning about ourselves.
Oh, it's personal. We're going to get to more to that, Yassine. That's excellent. Okay, but what about, I'm doing stuff up here. What am I doing that makes some of this fun? Because you're going to be in my position. I'm involving you. I'm engaging you.
There's variety.
There's variety. It's not all one thing. Okay.
We never know what you're going to do next.
Ah. Now, novelty, surprise, right? That's always good. Okay, now, we've worked through touch, visuals. This is all on this idea in front of you. I'm going to keep going. Okay? And we just did some music. Let's see about what else. What do you think? What am I going to add next? Well, you can look at your sheet, but sometimes you want to put things together. Now, in fact, when I'm going prefrontal cortex and having you do this is making it physical. When you're going, that's making it physical, right? So it's not just music, it's physical, it's visual, but you guys are, ooh, and you guys are, ooh. Okay, so, now, what I want to do is I want to play for you a clip that shows how these things work together to get people interested. By the way, I just want you to notice something. They asked the question, can we make it more fun for people to take the stairs by can we make it more people take the stairs by making it more fun to do? That poses a mystery that you want to keep watching for. Tell me what sensory data were involved in that activity. Hearing, touch, device, sight, visual. See, they're using all of it. But not only that, they've also made it social. Right? It's experiential with their body, but also with the other people who are doing it. So and the pets. So that there's a lot more going on than just one thing. Part of my problem with my initial handing of the rock and the things is that it's just text and a rock. It gets more fun when we broaden it out. We begin to do our song and so on. Okay, so now we've got a lot of data, a lot of sensory data going together. Now, what's really important is, this is my future son-in-law, this is at my daughter's graduation, and we were in Washington, and we found these columns, so I put this up here because this photo has personal relevance to me, and if I were wanting to teach about, say, relative size of things, and I might use this as a little, well, why did I put this up, kind of novelty at the beginning. But this has personal relevance to me. Now what I want you all to do at your tables is figure out how the issue of the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex relates to your life. Now let me give you an example. I want you to figure out a time in your life when you felt like your limbic system was at work. A time in your life where you really felt like your prefrontal cortex was at work. You may have to refer back to the sheet. Now, here's something we know, before you do it, here's something we know about the limbic system. When you are under stress, it shortcuts and doesn't get information to the prefrontal cortex. So what happens is, you're having this sensory experience right now. If you're feeling afraid, your reactive brain is getting everything. And your prefrontal cortex is just like, I don't know, I'm just, When you're relaxed, when you're having fun, when you're in a group, your limbic system says, oh, nice, good. I'll pass that information on to the prefrontal cortex, part right here, the higher brain. Okay? So I want you to figure out times, some specific times in your life, or in your students' lives, where you knew the limbic system was firing either positively or negatively, and then maybe some times where you really saw the prefrontal cortex going. Try to make this what we're talking about personal. And you talk to the people, you take some time to think, you share, whatever you need. Somebody's going to volunteer to tell a story, okay? But not tell us what that story illustrates. That story will illustrate either limbic system or prefrontal cortex. Okay? Now, everybody, when I say 1, 2, 3, is either going to go la or rah at the end of the story. Okay? Now, you might only have a rock or a ball, so you're going to have to decide. If you don't have one, you can just put your hand up to the rock, or if you don't have the right thing. Okay, now, I'm going to start just to demonstrate what I want you to do. I was coming to, this is my story. Now don't raise anything until I'm done. And I say 1, 2, 3. I was coming to work this morning, and I was feeling very anxious about this presentation. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we had a lot of roars there, okay? But I told myself, you often feel anxious before you come in front of a group. You'll be sure to just go slowly, pay attention to how people are reacting. And I settled right there. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's your limbic system and your prefrontal cortex working. Okay, and that was for real. All right. Now, somebody tell us a story. It could be just one or the other of them, or it could be combined like that. Okay, yes, go ahead.
When I was driving up here for Institute, I was passing the Taco Bell on the road. I was in the left lane behind someone doing 20 miles per hour, and I was running late. And
okay, time out. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I know I may have cut off the rest of your thing, but we're just going to take some parts. Somebody else. Yes, go ahead, Yassine.
Well, a few years ago, before I started grad school, I had to take the GRE, and that was my second time only taking a standardized test. So I did not know what to expect, and I felt maybe a bit nervous about it. Up until that day came, and I went there, and going through it, I actually got a handle on it, and it was
Stop. 1, 2, 3. When the actually got the eye, who got the handle on it, the eye, that's your prefrontal cortex. Your thinking brain, the part of you that thinks, that you feel thinking, is actually this part, this higher brain. So whenever you can stop and ask yourself what you are thinking, what's that called again?
Metacognition.
Metacognition. You're using your prefrontal cortex. In the interest of time, we could do a lot of those. I know you all have them. I'm trying to show you some different techniques. So I'm moving through this. I want to show you, first of all, that part of why this is fun, part of why roar. If I was just one-on-one with you and you had to roar, you feel a little silly. It's that we're doing this together, and you're all looking for your faces, and they're there somewhere. Well, and you know, by the way, this is a visual representation of a real thing, something that matters. We are older than when I started this presentation today. This is our life. This isn't like preparation for life. What we're doing right now is something that's important. It is our community. And the fact that we care for each other, even though it's for this 1 week, really matters. And it matters not just, oh, it matters, we should be peaceful or whatever. It matters at a deep emotional level. If people were not secure with one another in here, if Charles said something and somebody said, he might be wiped out for the rest of the week. That feeling would then block his ability to go to his prefrontal cortex. Have you ever had a student, anybody had a student who got blocked? They were so anxious that they got blocked. Can you tell us about it?
I have my math students get it every day. I mean, seriously, they're ESL.
Okay, so they get, here's our community. Is there any way that the community could help? His community. He or she is so anxious. He is so anxious.
We try to comfort them. Talk to them and comfort them.
Or just hear that other people are experiencing the same thing, right? Have people write what they're feeling and not have it with names and just read some of them out. Oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person who doesn't know where the bathroom is in this building. Or whatever it is, right? You know, doesn't know what my multiplication table is. So feeling a part of a community. Hey, by the way, this right here, it was interesting to me. I'll tell you how important this was to me. I messed up because I only looked at 2 of the 3 pages of pictures when I was putting this together. And one of the reasons why I came in only 5 minutes before my presentation, I'd normally like to get here 15 minutes before, was that I realized that at the last minute went and added the second page of faces. Now, you might say, well, that's kind of stupid. You know, to do that and maybe be late. It doesn't really matter if your face is there, but it does. Has everybody found their face yet? Isn't that interesting? See, we do care how we fit in. I think I've got everybody. Maybe am I missing anything? Tried really hard. Okay. Yeah, it's like right after all that. Okay. So let's just talk about this idea of attending to our own thinking. But before I do it, and it's Susie, right? Yes. Okay, Susie said something to me that I need to pick up on because I think a lot of you are probably experiencing this. I made this big deal about novelty. And Susie, tell us what you were feeling.
Well, we talked yesterday in our session with Catherine. Right. About how your brain might shut down if things unexpected are happening all the time, and that we don't want our students to be worrying about. They like routine. They like repeated.
And so Susie asked me, well, how does novelty fit in that if you're talking about unexpected? And so my response, and this is just, here I was feeling, something happened yesterday, I wasn't here. The community has this understanding, and I'm now going against it. I'm feeling kind of out. But I thought, well, the way I handled that is I would just make sure that at the beginning of every class, very routine, there is something unusual. And they know to expect that, and they know at the end of the class we're going to talk about it.
And it's always a good
That's a routine, but it's a routine of novelty.
And they learn that it's something not to be afraid of.
Yeah, not to be afraid. And then you get them to be metacognitive about it. You say, okay, what does it feel like? What does it feel like in your head when you don't know what's going on, when you don't know why he's on the table upside down or there are radishes there? What does that feel like? Because life is filled with stuff like that. So you get people to pay attention. Now, I want you to pay attention to your own thinking. You know this test. You've done it before. Okay? What we're going to do is, as my mouse goes over these, you are going to say the color of the word. Not, okay, so this one will be green, red, blue, yellow, prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain. You can feel your prefrontal cortex working when we do this, but I'm going to make it a little harder. Okay? What I'm going to do now is you're going to read the word of the ones without the boxes. Okay, so that one you're going to call blue. But you're going to read the color of the one with it. So that one you would read blue. So this would be blue, green. The boxes mean read the color, go in. Think of the boxes saying go into the word. Okay, now let's try it. By the way, notice how I'm not making anybody do it alone, which makes it safe. You got to think about safety in all these things. Okay, let's just try it. But as you're doing it, I want you to pay attention to your own brain thinking, because the part of your brain is that part in the front, the prefrontal cortex, the la. Ready? And boxes mean we say green, blue, orange, yellow, red, black, purple, blue. Okay. Okay. That's the sensation of your brain working. That's your brain thinking, as you were paying attention to what you were doing, that's your brain thinking about itself. By the way, that little clue of the boxes mean look in, that helped me a lot. Right? See, that's a little tool. It's a mental tool to solve the problem. We just have a few more minutes and I want to run through just a couple of things. Look at this picture here. I want you to try to identify where the houses turn into faces. Where is it? What row does it, when does it start? If I go back, at what point?
Right about there.
Right there.
Ah, okay. See, everybody's got a different perception of this. Again, this is risk-free guessing. This is giving people attention to their own thinking, metacognition, paying attention to what they are thinking. Optical illusions are excellent for this, any optical illusion, because anybody could see, either the vase or the two faces. You could say, why? Can you switch back and forth? What does it feel like to switch back and forth? Escher paintings are really good for that. Anything that gets people to learn about their own thinking. Now, let me tell you the study that relates to this. They told these students before a unit, they said, you can change how you think. Just by thinking about your own thinking, you can actually improve the machine of your brain. And they taught them this. This is what they taught them. They said, they taught them about this concept of neuroplasticity. That's a weird word, isn't it? Neuro. Let's break it down. Neuro, brain, right? So that's the brain, the whole brain. Okay. Plasticity. Plasticity is a strange word. Think about the word plastic. Okay. I need to have three people who don't mind looking a little silly come up here to demonstrate something for me. Okay. Who doesn't mind looking just a little silly? Come on up. Come on up. Matt, or here you go. There's one. Okay. All right. Yeah, no. You okay, that's good. Roxanne, you can come up too. I've got 4. Okay, now, here's your task. We're going to pretend like you don't have neuroplasticity. This is going to be some connections in your brain, and I'm going to, just before you get started, I just want to show everybody something here. If you think about how your brain is put together, it's made of these neurons. They connect to one another, right? And they have these synapses, these things called synapses, which are the connection points that don't quite touch. Neurotransmitters go back and forth between them. This is not important, just that the idea that your brain is made of all these cells that hook up to one another. And that's an actual electron. That's an actual look at that. Okay? So your brain is made of all these connections. But it's not fixed in the way that it is connected up. You are not born with a brain that is like your brain now. It actually changes. So let's imagine that it couldn't bend. Put your hands on either side of this neuron here, and we're going to connect in another neuron. Go ahead. Put your head on that. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to now connect these ends to both your knees. Without breaking the neuron. You can't break it or bend it, okay? You can't do it, can you? Maybe. It's kind of hard to do, right? So, now. You had a stroke! Okay, now. This is not how your brain is hooked up. In fact, your brain is hooked up like this. Put your hands on either side. Okay? And I'm going to give you all a flexible, or another word for flexible is plastic. That's why I came for the word. A flexible neuron. So let's pretend that now what we're going to do is we're going to learn something which is going to be the equivalent of making some new connections. We're going to touch our hands to our knees very easily. Okay? The difference is that this can bend and make new connections easily. Well, neurons don't exactly bend. They grow and they make new connections. They strengthen the connections they have. But the word plasticity simply means flexible. Our brains are flexible. And when we learn, we make new connections with our flexible or plastic brain. So they told kids this. They taught them about this. Those kids did significantly better at the end of the unit. That was the only difference. They told kids that they could make themselves smarter. And that's the one difference, and they were able to succeed on that test. So teaching your students about the fact that their brains can change and grow is very important. And in fact, I've got a handout for you that we'll hand out right now as I finish up, if somebody will, that will talk a little bit about techniques for teaching people about their brains. Okay? What you should know about your brain that you can share with your students that has been shown to help just by knowing that. A couple last things before we go. We attend when we communicate. Here are some 7th graders who learned what I'm handing out to you. They studied this. This is what they said.
You're fine.
I imagine neurons making connections in my brain when I study. I feel like I'm changing my brain when I learn something, understand it, and review it. That's a 7th grader writing about what he learned about his brain. He's communicating some information in the same way that you might write a letter to somebody or an email saying, I learned this thing about the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. When you send that out, you will reinforce it. These kids were asked to do the same thing. If I use my prefrontal cortex to mentally manipulate what I learned, my dendrites and synapses grow, and I will own that learning for a long, long time. I won't have to learn fractions all over again each year. You go. These are real quotes. Okay, and if you're trying to write them down, they will also be in the PowerPoint, but you can write them. I'll leave them up for a moment. So remember, I've had to move pretty quickly, but remember, take some time after lunch and jot down some things that you learned from this session. Try to remember these things by expressing them. Finally, emotion is always going to mediate what you did. So if you're in a, how many people were feeling a lot of stress when I was presenting? Are people feeling called out or stressed? No, I hope not. If you were, I would hope that as a teacher I would have started to pick up on it. Maybe not. But if you were stressed about somebody sick at home or whatever, not much of what I said would have meant much to you. They did a study. And they knew that positive feelings would allow the brain to route stuff to the prefrontal cortex. So what they did was they took this image and they showed it to one group of 5th graders. And then they had them take a test. And all they did was look at this, and then they took a test. Their scores went down significantly. The other group looked at this, and then they took a test. Their scores went up. In another study, they had kids, before they took a test, simply remember the happiest day of their lives. They had an 18, I believe it was between 18 and 20% increase in their scores on tests of memory after remembering the happiest day of their life. It means a lot for people who are working with people who have difficulties in their lives, because you've got to handle those things before some of the other things will come clear. I'm moving quickly here at the end, but let me just end with a couple of things that are, I think, worth waiting for here. Okay, remember the power of optimism.
I'm the greatest hitter in the world! Strike one. I'm the greatest hitter in the world! Strike two. I'm the greatest hitter in the world! Strike three. Wow. I'm the greatest pitcher in the world.
That link is linked from the PowerPoint, so you just click on the picture and it will take you there. It's also in the notes section if you want to get at that. So just to end, remember that effective teaching requires that we incorporate as many different attention cues as possible. Rocks and love and text and chanting and singing and getting up and talking to other people and thinking, relating it to your own lives. All of those, not just one or the other, but trying to bring all of them together. And to make sure that you do any presentation, make sure that it is supporting the emotional state. That it's part of a community. And that it's a part of a supportive community. Identify that. Those two things are something that I tried to bring to every presentation I make. I don't always succeed in my presentations. They're not always just smooth and flawless. I always wish I did something different. But generally, I try to have them be varied and fun in a supportive atmosphere. And when they're not, I go back and try to change. I use my prefrontal cortex and I say, okay, it didn't work. What didn't work? Let's try that again. Instead of just saying, I did that last week, I'll do it again next week because it's easy. Actually ask what makes something work. There's a little postscript to this thing, and I can't get away without doing it. Since the last time I saw you all, my dad, who is he was a great lover of the senses and of the mind. And he loved my chickens. This is my chicken coop. And in fact, this picture was taken after he had walked out with his walker and fallen out in the woods trying to get out to the chickens to get closer to them. Because it's like a path. And then I brought his wheelchair out and he hung out there with the chickens for a while. He is the reason I'm here today doing what I do. Because good teaching, and he was a great teacher, is something that doesn't end with us. And it's not just about your students doing well on the test. And it's not just about us getting good evaluations this week as an institute. This is real. This is our lives. And he passed away this last winter. This is one of the last photos that was taken of us all together. It's my sister, my brother, and I. And he's here in the same way that we'll all be in the world after we're gone. But we're only going to be there positively if we pay careful attention to what we're doing. And to really love the people that we're with as best we can, and to love the material we're teaching as best we can, and to pay careful attention to not just today, but to all of human history that leads us to that point. That person, us, that brain, and then we just are part of a big river of learning and of love, and that matters. And I can't come in here without saying that, because this happened in January, and it's been basically what I've been in for that last 3 or 4 months. So thank you for letting me add that little bit at the end, but you'll be a part of it.